sitting in my car because my house is, God love them, but it's insane right now. So I am I'm hiding my car to do this live real quick, because if I even attempted to do it in the house, like, they would just my sweet babies would they'd love to talk to me 24/7, it feels like. And I'm so grateful that, you know, they're still at the age where they think I'm cool. But I seriously feel like I'm started to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning just to get work done before they wake up, because they're 9 and 10, a boy and a girl, Riley and Ryder, and they are just right there all the time. And I am not one of those people that can multitask. Like, I've got to stay focused. And anyway, so the summer gets a little challenging around here. Anyway, hey Bev, how are you? If y'all can hear me and see me okay, if y'all just let me know. My car's on because it's Texas and it's like 6,000 degrees here. And so anyway, like I said, I'm hiding my car. We may get interrupted because I told them, I was like, I gotta run to the bank right quick, because I don't know if they know I'm sitting in the driveway or not. But here we are. So, okay. Let's see, Teresa, I'm not sure how you say it, probably Teresa. I'm not good with names sometimes. She had a couple of questions that she posted this morning, 4 questions. They were really great questions, and so I just wanted to hop on and answer those questions, because I know a lot of people have the same question. So we are going to talk about file setup. Her first question was, what size should I make my file? She was working on some sublimation products. I don't know what particular product, but she was just kind of asking how to set things up in Photoshop. Now this is not just a Photoshop specific thing. Like, it'll work, you know, file size, file setup, that's kind of the same all the way across the board. So what size should I make my file? As far as inches and width, it really depends on the product that you're working on. Sometimes bigger is better, just because you can always, it's easier to go down and shrink down versus going up. I think I can't remember what member it was, Tanya maybe, said, you know, set it up. There you are. Yeah, it was you. Set up your file size as big as your paper, like when you're using sublimation, which is, you know, that's perfect. I was working on some little koozies the other day, and so I just set my file size. It was like a 3.5 by 3 or something, just to get the size of the koozie. And anyway, so file size, it really just depends on what the project you are, you know, what you're working on, and what your printer can do also. This other one, number 2 question is, how many pixels per inch, or PPI, you might say it as DPI, should I set it at? For anything that you're going to print. Hey, Leslie from Nebraska, how are you? Thank y'all for joining me, by the way. It's been a while since I've done a live, and I love connecting with y'all so much in the group. Like, I love this group. Back to the question, how many pixels per inch should I set it at? You should always do a minimum of 300. 300 is considered like print quality. So if you're not familiar with resolution in Photoshop, or just, you know, resolution and graphics in general, a 300 is kind of the bottom range. I mean, that's going to give you a good print quality file. Now, if you're just creating, like, say, a social media post or graphics just online, like for website graphics, you know, something that you're just going to use online and not print out, you can get away with doing those at 72. So you're either really going to use 72 or 300. Those are really the only ones that I use. 72, that's just going to give you a smaller file size when you do save, so that you're not having to, you know, if you go to a website and takes forever for the graphics to load, or, you know, that sort of thing, that 72 just makes the file size smaller, where 300 is going to make it larger, and it's going to be a bigger graphic, you know, or not necessarily a bigger graphic, but just the file size is going to be bigger. So 300 always a minimum when you're doing something for print, whether it's business cards or a sublimation graphic. All my designs, like all my digital graphics and the membership site, they are all created at 300, at least 300. So if y'all have any questions at any time, even after we're not live, feel free to just comment, because I will go back and read all the questions, and I want this to be helpful. Number 3, let's see, she was working in Photoshop, and she said that something about, I assume I'm going to merge the layers when I'm done with the design. Now here's what I do. I don't ever really merge my layers because if you're saving it as a PNG or a JPEG, it's going to merge those layers together anyway. It's going to compress them and flatten that graphic out. Whenever I have a design going, I save them in at least two ways. I save all the layers, like I'll save the design file as a PSD, which is the layered Photoshop file. So that way, like I design it, save it that way. That way, if I want to go back and change something or, you know, make another graphic out of it or whatever, I still have those original layers, okay? And then I sign it. I can never talk, y'all. I've been going 9-0 a day, and I got up way too early, so I'm tired. So just bear with me. So then, you know, I save it in the PSD, but then I'm also going to save it in a JPEG or a PNG file, mostly PNG files, and that's going to give you the transparent background, where a JPEG is just going to give you the white background, or, you know, whatever the background color is. So I hope that makes sense. So again, like whenever you're in Photoshop, you don't have to actively go and compress all those graphics and merge them down, because once you hit save as a JPEG or save as a PNG, those are going to just compress already. So whenever you go back to open it back up, like, you're not going to see those layers, you know. Or if you transport it into your printer, or you transport it into wherever you're going with it, like if it's a JPEG and a PNG, or it's going to be compressed. Now the only caveat to that is if you save the graphics as a PDF, you have the option for the layers to show up or for them not to show up. There's like a little checkbox, like once you save it, it'll say, you know, do you want to maintain the layers or not? And so that's that, okay? But I do always recommend saving it if you're using Photoshop, to save it as a PSD, because, hey everybody, because you do want to maintain those layers, and, you know, you never know, a month or so down the road, I was going to say 10 years, but probably not that long, you're going to want that design file. You know, you may want it or change something or make it better, or, you know, whatever. So I save design files like crazy, because you can reuse it some way. So thank you. My cousin Lindsay, she said, I'm not here for the questions and answers, I'm just here to look at your cute hair. Well, I appreciate it so much, which you always have the cutest hair, so I appreciate that. Margot said, can I print from the layer file, or should I save as a PNG and print from that? Okay, that's a really good question, Margot. If, like, for instance, when I was making these koozies last week, I printed right from Photoshop, and so it was already layered, you know. Like, it kind of depends, like, if you have a question specifically, like, if I go to my printer, I don't ever, well, you know, you can't really use a layered file outside of Photoshop. Like, if I was gonna, I'm trying to think all this through, well, like, if there's a different, like, a certain situation you're talking about, like, let me know, elaborate a little bit more on that. But you can definitely, you know, if you're in Photoshop, you can print straight from Photoshop, and you may have 20,000 layers open, but you can still print from that. If you're, you know, again, like she said, should I save as a PNG and print from that? Like, if I'm printing outside of Photoshop, then I usually just have it, you know, like I have a PNG or a JPEG or, you know, PDF sometimes. So it kind of just depends on the situation. But if it's inside of Photoshop, you can just, you know, print from whatever file you have open. If it's outside, it's usually going to be a compressed file, like a PNG or a JPEG. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, like, feel free to comment again. Okay, then her last question, what is the easiest way to check the quality of the file when I'm done? Which is a really good question. But the quality really resides within the resolution that I was talking about, like the 300 ppi or the 72. Like, if you open up a file and you check it, because you, like, say if you just have a file and you have no idea if it's high or low resolution or what's going on with it, throw it into Photoshop, check, and like on mine, I would go to image, and it's going to show me the dimensions, and then it's going to show me the resolution too, okay? No, there's all these caveats. Robin said, once you save as a PNG, it's going to compress layers. Yeah, right, yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, you don't even have an option on JPEG or PNG. Like, they're just going to, you know, be compressed. So, on the, when you're checking it, sometimes when I pull, like, if I take a picture with my camera and I pull it into Photoshop, it will say like 49 inches by 57 inches or whatever the dimensions are at 72. And so that's it kind of gets weird there, because it's really, that's a high resolution photo even though it says 72 DPI. Oh, one of them found me. Hey, honey. Oh my gosh. Hold on just a second. I'm sorry. Hey, I'm just doing a lap. Okay, I'll be there in just a minute. Okay, I love you. Bye. Sorry. Anyway, so if you had a photo and you pull it up and it says 72, but it's like huge in far as terms of inches, like, you know, like I said, it says 42 inches or whatever, that's really a high resolution photo, okay? And you can always, you know, scale that back down. Like there's an option in Photoshop under the image thing where it shows you the PPI and the inches. You can change that and put 300 in there, and then it's gonna bring it back down to, you know, like 7 by 6 inches or whatever the dimensions are. If you have more questions on that, feel free to put those in. Okay, so the quality of the file, you know, you're good. If you have a 300 on there, then almost all, you know, if you're working with good high quality graphics, then you're gonna be okay. You can stretch that quite a bit. Now just remember, digital graphics mostly are, you know, the ones I use, the ones you can get off Etsy, most of those are raster files. Like if they're in PNG form or JPEG form, they're going to be raster files, which that means there's only so much stretching you can do on those before they get all pixelated and blurry. But if you have like a vector graphic, which is like, you know, raster graphics kind of go with Photoshop, where vector graphics go with Illustrator. So if you have like a SVG or, you know, some PDFs, an EPS, that kind of file like that, that's going to be a vector file most times. And you can stretch those. Like you could create a tiny little, you know, business card size file, but if you had it in a vector file, you could stretch it all the way up to be seen like on a billboard or something. I don't do vector files really, because there's so much texture and like dimension and just distress in my graphics, because they kind of have that vintage style look, that I create them as raster graphics, because I can just get so much more, you know, like I just really am into the texture and the, you know, to make them look as real as possible. So hope that helps you there. If y'all have any, those are such good questions, so I really appreciate Teresa Barnes for posting those, because I know a lot of people do have those questions. Again, if you are just hopping on, and, you know, feel free to leave a comment if you have any question, not just a file question. I'll do my best to answer it. But if you're watching later after the live, I will go back and, you know, see your comments, so feel free to ask.